When I called my son Daniel to ask about his wedding date, Sophia, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, the girl I'd raised like my own, looked me straight in the eyes and said with a cold smile, "We got married yesterday. Only those who deserve it were invited." Those words cut through my heart like a knife. For 3 years I paid their rent, bought them a car, put food on their table, and in return I wasn't deserving. Have you ever been betrayed by your own flesh and blood like that? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. I set the phone down, my hands trembling, my heart tightening like someone was squeezing it. The room suddenly felt cold. So cold I had to pull my old coat tighter, even though the fireplace was still burning bright. Sophia's words echoed in my head, each one like a hammer blow. Only those who deserve it were invited. I'd given my whole life to Daniel, my only son, and now I wasn't worthy. After my wife Maria passed away, this house became so empty that every step echoed with loneliness. I thought Daniel would be the one comfort I had left. I remember those winter nights when he was just 7, crying in my arms because he missed his mother. I promised myself then I'd be both father and mother to him. I'd protect him for as long as I lived. That promise followed me all the way to 68, turning me into a man willing to sell his peaceful old age just so his son could have an easier life. For the past 3 years, I haven't lived for myself, but for Daniel and Sophia. I paid over $2,000 a month for their fancy apartment in downtown New York, while I stayed in this leaky old place in Brooklyn. I bought the car Daniel always dreamed of, even lied to my friends that it was a birthday gift for myself, just to hide the truth that the car was never mine. I still remember the night Sophia was rushed to the hospital for food poisoning. Daniel called me panicking. I ran there as fast as I could, emptied what was left of my retirement savings to pay the bill. Sitting in that cold white hallway, signing the papers with shaking hands, I told myself, it's okay, as long as they're safe. I didn't realize those signatures would turn me into a hostage in my own life. The worst of my blind sacrifices was the day I sold my father's old pocket watch, the only thing he left me. It wasn't just a watch. It was history, bloodline, memory. I could still see him walking me down Wall Street, teaching me that a man must live with responsibility. My hands trembled as I placed it on the pawn shop counter. My chest tightened when I heard the clerk counting the money. Each dollar sounded like a piece of my past being torn away. That money became the solution to one of Daniel's credit card debts. I never told anyone. Around my friends, I always painted the picture of a proud father, a son on the rise, a sweet daughter-in-law. I bragged that Daniel was starting his own business, that Sophia would open an art gallery. I lied to everyone, to hide the truth that they were living off me. I told myself it was love, it was duty. But deep down I knew. I was buying my son's affection, and he was selling me cold hugs and hollow thank yous. Some nights when the wind whistles through the cracks, I sit alone staring at an old photo, Daniel as a little boy holding me tight, smiling. I ask myself, when did that child disappear? When did he turn into a man who sees me only as an ATM? I drink cheap whiskey hoping the burn will numb the pain. But it doesn't. It only makes the truth clearer that my own flesh and blood has drained me dry. I remember once after sending Daniel some money, I had only a few dollars left. I skipped dinner for 3 nights, living on instant noodles just to pay the electric bill. Meanwhile, on social media, Sophia posted pictures from a fancy Italian restaurant, her glass of red wine gleaming under the lights. I bit my lip till it bled, but still told myself, as long as they're happy. And now after all that, I'm left with those 4 cruel words, only those who deserve it. Me, the man who gave up his peace, his treasures, his health, his very soul, wasn't worthy to be at his own son's wedding. That pain, it's no longer sharp. It's a tear, a deep, raw wound, exposing the truth I've spent my whole life nurturing an illusion, a love that never truly existed. I sat frozen on that old wooden chair, my fingers still trembling after the call, a call that struck me like lightning. The darkness swallowed my tiny apartment. Only a streetlight leaked through the window, casting shadows across the damp-stained wall. I felt like a stranger in my own life. 3 years of giving up everything. And now on my son's wedding day, my name wasn't even on the guest list. What hurt most wasn't being left out. It was how it happened. Sophia, with that sweet smile I once trusted, said those cruel words like it was just some harmless joke. And Daniel, my son, the boy who once cried in my arms when his mother died, he just looked down, avoiding my eyes like a thief caught in the act. That cowardly silence. It cut deeper than Sophia's knife. That night I opened social media, something I rarely touched, and what I saw made my whole body go numb. Photos everywhere. Daniel and Sophia dressed to perfection, standing in the golden sunlight of Hawaii. Sophia in a $10,000 wedding gown, one I mostly paid for. Daniel smiling wide, holding her hand, surrounded by her family, glasses of champagne raised high. I zoomed in on one photo. Her parents stood right beside them, their eyes full of pride. And me, the father, nowhere to be seen. I stared at that picture until my vision blurred. I couldn't tell if it was the glare of the screen or my own tears. For a moment, one thought crossed my mind. Maybe I'd already died long ago, inside my son's heart. I dragged myself to the bedroom, opened the closet, and saw the suit I'd had dry cleaned for the wedding. It still hung there, sealed neatly in plastic, a cruel reminder of my foolish hope. On the desk sat an envelope with $5,000 in cash, the wedding gift I'd prepared. I'd imagined handing it to Daniel with pride, but now it just mocked me, a bitter symbol of my own stupidity. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, memories flooding back, nights delivering packages just to pay Daniel's college tuition. The day I broke my arm at work, but kept going, afraid to lose the only income we had. The rainy nights when I'd carry bags of groceries to their apartment so they'd eat well, while I lived on instant noodles. All that sacrifice, all that love, only to be repaid with 4 words: not worthy enough. The next morning, a message from Daniel popped up. "Dad, I'm busy. Can't take calls. Don't forget to transfer the rent by the 5th. I read it over and over. My veins felt like ice. No question if I was okay, no apology, no explanation. Just a cold instruction like I was their bank. I tried calling back, but the line was busy. I left a message: "Daniel, I want to hear it from you. I need to know why." But silence. Hours later, Sophia sent a single text. "We're on our honeymoon. Don't bother us." The walls around me felt like they were collapsing. I slammed my hand on the table. The whiskey glass fell shattered into 100 pieces. Blood dripped from my hand, but I felt no pain. Only emptiness. Endless emptiness. That night, in despair, I walked out into the streets of New York. The city glowed bright, yet felt colder than ever. I passed couples holding hands, laughter spilling from bars, all of it foreign, belonging to a world I no longer recognized. I stopped in front of a wedding boutique. In the window, a mannequin wore a pristine white gown. I stared at it, then laughed a hoarse, bitter laugh, because I knew I'd paid for that kind of happiness. When I got home, my mailbox was stuffed with overdue bills, electricity, water, health insurance. I sat on the steps, holding my head in my hands, feeling cornered, completely spent. And in that moment, a dark thought crossed my mind. Maybe if I disappeared, they'd be happy, and I'd finally stop hurting. But then, through that thick darkness, I remembered Maria's eyes, the way she looked at me before she passed. That look told me to live, to protect Daniel, to hold on to myself. Tears fell as I whispered, "Maria, I've failed you. I've lost our son." That night I reached the bottom, the deepest pit of pain I'd ever known. But down there in that cold emptiness, I saw 2 choices. Either let them destroy what's left of me, or stand up even if it's with the last bit of strength I have left. After that fateful night, I thought I'd already hit rock bottom, that there was nothing left to lose. But I was wrong. The betrayal wasn't over. It was only beginning. 3 days after Daniel and Sophia cut off all contact, I was sitting in the kitchen sipping a bland cup of coffee when a sharp knock rattled the door. When I opened it, there stood Daniel, Sophia, and a man in a gray suit. Daniel avoided my eyes, and Sophia wore that half-smile, fake and cold. The stranger reached out his hand. "Good afternoon. I'm Richard Collins, an attorney. I'm here on behalf of your son, to discuss transferring management of your assets." I froze. Assets I barely owned anything, just this old apartment, a few savings accounts and my pension. And yet here they were in my own home, acting as if I was ready to hand everything over. Sophia stepped forward, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Dad, we know your memory hasn't been great lately. We just want to help. If you sign this, we'll take care of the banks, the bills, the insurance. You won't have to worry about a thing." I looked down at the papers Collins laid out. Lines and lines of legal jargon, but I didn't need to read them to know what they were. Full power of attorney. One signature and I'd lose everything, my money, my home, my freedom. I lifted my head, anger rising. "Daniel, do you really think I wouldn't see through this? You're trying to turn me into a useless old man so you can strip away whatever I have left." Daniel stayed silent, eyes darting away. Sophia pretended to sniffle, but her tone was sharp as glass. "Dad, we've been patient long enough. If you refuse to cooperate, we'll have to take this to court to protect the family's interests." The family. Those words coming from her mouth sounded like a cruel joke. I shouted, voice cracking, "Family. What kind of family treats their father like a damn ATM? What kind of family cuts him out of a wedding and now tries to steal his life?" The air turned thick, suffocating. Then I tore the papers in half and threw them in Colin's face. "Get out of my house. All of you," Sophia screamed. Daniel pulled her away and the three of them left, leaving my apartment heavy with silence and the stench of betrayal. I collapsed into the chair, heart pounding. Deep down I knew this wasn't over. They'd be back with something worse. And I was right. A week later, after finishing a shift at the community library, I came home to find the door forced open. My chest tightened. Inside, everything was overturned. Drawers emptied, the safe pried open. Bank files, insurance papers, even my handwritten notes all gone. But what broke me wasn't the money. It was the missing wooden box, the one that held Maria's letters, the love notes she wrote me when we were young. I dropped to the floor, shaking. It wasn't just theft, it was desecration. They hadn't just stolen things. They'd stolen her, the memory of the woman I loved most. I sobbed, the sound raw, pulled from somewhere deep in my chest. The police came, took notes, asked questions. But when I told them I suspected my own son, they exchanged uneasy glances. I saw it in their eyes, a lonely old man, confused, maybe delusional. The humiliation burned worse than the loss. That night I sat in the dark, holding an old photo of Maria. I whispered, "Do you see this, Maria? I've lost our son, but I won't let them destroy me. I'll fight for me and for you." For the first time in years, I felt a spark inside me, a fire I thought had died long ago. I realized I'd spent too long living like a prisoner chained by guilt and love. But from that moment on, I swore I'd break those chains. The next morning, I went to the bank. I canceled every authorization, blocked every access point. The account manager, a kind, middle-aged woman, looked at me with concern. "Mr. Miller, are you sure this is a major change?" I straightened up, my voice firm. "I've never been more sure. It's my money, my life. No one's taking it again." When I stepped out of the bank, I felt lighter, like I'd dropped a boulder I'd carried for years. But I also knew Daniel and Sophia wouldn't give up easily. They'd be back fiercer, crueler. And next time, they wouldn't just go after my money. They'd come for my mind, my dignity. I took a deep breath, looked up at the gray New York sky, and whispered, "All right then. If it's war they want, I'll give them one. I'm not that weak old man anymore. I'm Thomas Miller, and I'll fight until my very last breath." I knew I'd started a fight I couldn't stop. When I froze their accounts and shut every door to my money, I cut off Daniel and Sophia's lifeline. A week later, their counterattack began. One winter morning, an envelope stamped with the court seal arrived. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a petition asking the court to declare me incapable of managing my affairs, and to appoint a legal guardian, Daniel. The language was cold, clinical. Mr. Thomas Miller, age 68, shows signs of memory decline and erratic behavior. Financial guardianship is necessary for safety. I sat there stunned. The pain wasn't simply the words. It was that they came from my son, the boy I once held, the boy I promised to protect for life. He wanted the court to call his father crazy. Desperate, I found Helen Carter, a lawyer known for defending seniors' rights. She listened quiet for a long while, then said, "Mr. Miller, this isn't just a family dispute. It's financial elder abuse. It happens more than you think. But you're fortunate you're lucid and you can fight this. If you want, I'll represent you." It was the first time in months someone spoke to me without pity. I grabbed her hand like it was a life ring in a storm. What followed was grueling. Helen told me to gather every receipt, bank statements, wire transfers, hospital bills, leases I'd paid. When we added it up, it topped $50,000 over 3 years. Seeing that number left me hollow. I hadn't just lost money. I'd lost my old age, my dignity. Helen also arranged for an independent psychiatrist to test my memory, my thinking, my ability to manage money. I barely slept, terrified a tiny mistake would be twisted into proof of madness. But after the exam, the doctor smiled and said, "You're sharper than many younger people I've seen. Don't worry, Mr. Miller. They won't take your mind that easily." Meanwhile, Daniel and Sophia were working their own angles. They hired fake witnesses, a neighbor who'd always disliked me, a pharmacist coerced into falsifying records, even a doctor who claimed he'd observed signs of paranoia. Each accusation was a blade. But instead of collapsing, a cold anger rose in me. I wasn't a hostage anymore. I was a betrayed father, and I would fight. On the day of the hearing, I put on a simple black suit and walked into the courtroom with my head up. Daniel sat across from me, face stone-cold, eyes avoiding mine. Sophia clutched his hand, eyes bright with triumph. Their lawyer spoke first, all drama and false concern. "Your Honor, we only seek to protect a weakening father. Mr. Miller has become paranoid, reckless with money, and vulnerable to manipulation. His son, out of filial duty, only wants to help." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Filial duty. The word stung like an insult. Then Helen stood. Her words were steady, hard as a hammer. "Your Honor, this is not filial piety. This is a systematic plan to seize assets. Mr. Miller is not diminished. He is a man betrayed by his own flesh and blood." I sat there, heart pounding, but a small light of hope flickered. The fight had just begun. This time I wasn't alone. I had the truth. I had proof. I had the law. And above all, I had a will that would not break. I sat in that courtroom, my heart pounding heavy like a hammer against my chest. Across from me, Daniel and Sophia sat close together, their eyes sharp, hiding behind those fake expressions of sorrow. I knew then this wasn't about family anymore. To them, it was business. If they won, they'd have everything. If they lost, their lifeline was gone. As their witnesses took the stand one by one, my stomach twisted. Mr. Davis, that neighbor who always hated me, claimed I yelled for no reason, installed cameras all over the house like a lunatic. A pharmacist said I didn't take my medication regularly, showing signs of disorder. Then Dr. Lehman, the one they hired, calmly stated he refused a psychiatric evaluation. That's a clear symptom of cognitive decline. Each accusation was a knife to the chest. I gripped the armrest tight, reminding myself they're lying. And I've got proof. When it was Helen's turn, she called Dr. Moore, the independent psychiatrist who had examined me. She presented the results. My memory, reasoning, and financial judgment were all above average for my age. Then she laid a thick folder on the table. Every bank transfer, every receipt, every rent payment I'd made for Daniel and Sophia. Over $50,000 in 3 years. The mood in the courtroom shifted. People started whispering. The crazy old man suddenly looked like what I truly was, a father drained dry by his own blood. When Helen called me to the stand, my legs trembled a bit, but I took a deep breath and walked slowly, not showing weakness. She asked Mr. Miller, "Why did you decide to stop supporting your son and daughter-in-law financially?" I looked Daniel in the eye, then turned to the judge. "Because I finally realized They never loved me. They loved my money. I used to think I could buy affection with checks and rescues. But the day they cut me out of my own son's wedding, I saw the truth. I was just an ATM with a heartbeat. And I don't want to live like that anymore. The courtroom went silent. I went on, voice shaking but firm. I don't regret loving my son, but I won't let that love become a noose around my neck ever again. Helen placed her hand on my shoulder, then turned to the judge. Your Honor, this isn't mental decline. It's clarity. Judge Miller sat quietly for a long moment, reviewing every document, every word. Then came the sound of the gavel, sharp, final like thunder. The court finds Mr. Thomas Miller fully competent. The petition for guardianship is denied. Furthermore, alleged financial exploitation and unlawful entry will be subject to separate investigation. I closed my eyes. It felt like a mountain had been lifted off my chest. In that moment, I wasn't a victim anymore. I was a survivor. Daniel looked at me, anger and panic mixed in his eyes. Sophia started crying, but it wasn't remorse. It was defeat. They turned away without a word. And I knew. That was our last goodbye. After the trial, I sold the old apartment in Brooklyn. I didn't want those damp walls reminding me of nights filled with tears. I moved to a quiet coastal town in California, where the waves greet the shore every morning. I joined a small painting club, rediscovered the passion I'd buried for decades, made friends with people who didn't care about my past, and that was true freedom. I donated part of what I had left to a fund that helps elderly victims of financial abuse. I didn't want anyone else to face that nightmare alone. Some nights I stand on the balcony looking out at the dark sea, listening to the waves mix with the wind. For the first time in years, I feel peace. I know I've lost my son, but I found something far more precious, my dignity and my life. I whisper softly as if sending my words to Maria across the wind. I did it, sweetheart. I'm no longer a prisoner of blind love. I'm Thomas Miller, and I'm free. The sea answers with a rush of white waves like applause from the horizon. I close my eyes and smile. For the first time in decades, I feel truly alive. I lost a son, but I found myself again. I've learned that love can never be bought with money, and sometimes real family isn't about blood, but about the people who truly value you. If you've ever felt used or taken for granted, remember this. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not for what you have. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories like this. And tell me, what would you do if the ones you love most were the ones who betrayed you?